All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to 180 Degrees of Impact. I'm Matt Scott, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Ian Rosenberger. Ian, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, Matt?
Hey, it's going. It's awesome. Nothing much other than interviewing you, and I'm really excited to be chatting now. I was about to dive in actually to introducing you more and describing who you are, but I guess it really depends on who you ask, because you're a man of many different hats and experiences. So I would love if you could introduce yourself to me and to the 108 Degrees of Impact audience.
Yeah, sure. My name's Ian. I'm the CEO and founder of Thread and the founder and the board chair of an organization called Team Tassi. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I live in Brooklyn, New York with my wife and my Basset Hound dog. I'm not here very much. I'm on the road and a lot and primarily traveling to promote both the business, the organization that we started in Haiti after the earthquake there that places people into jobs, and then also to talk about why I believe that business can change the world. So you're right, I do wear a lot of hats, but as you can see, I like hats. So.
Oh, well, yeah, literally.
Yeah, so that's the basics of me.
Awesome. And so, I would love for you to talk more about Thread and Team Tossi and what inspired you to start those. And I think that's actually a great place to start. What ultimately inspired you to start those in 2010?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, you know, what creates inspiration for starting something. I think I've always wanted to start have a startup or start a business. My dad had started a business. My grandfather started a business. My great grandfather was an entrepreneur. So you know, it runs in the blood in terms of startup culture and startup kind of being in the soul. But it wasn't until I traveled to Haiti after the earthquake in 2010 that I had the chance to see that I could combine business with solving really big, hairy problems. And so as maybe you may or may not know, you certainly know about the earthquake, but over the course of about a minute and a half on January 8th, 2010, Haiti had an earthquake that about 300,000 people died from, and about 1.5 million people were left homeless. And I left Haiti after my first trip thinking, that the size and scale, the destruction that I saw made it feel and act more like a war zone than any other place. And B, that this site was not uncommon amongst poor communities that I'd visited all over the world. So I had noted in my journal and in my photos that I was seeing a lot of trash on the ground and a lot of folks who couldn't put food on the table. And I wrote in my journal, if Haiti could turn trash into money equals good. And I really left it alone for almost a year. I got preoccupied with helping a kid out that I'd met down in Haiti named Tassi to get him fixed up from a tumor. And it wasn't until that we brought Tassi back down into Haiti after his surgery that I realized that just depositing Tass back into the community that he was from put him at a major disadvantage and essentially doomed him to the same life he was going to be doomed to before, which was, you know, a violent death and likely a pretty short life. So I realized there was a need to stick with Tass until he didn't need me anymore. And that begged the question, what does it mean for the poor not to need the wealthy, and not to need support from those who have some economic privilege? And that led to a quest to eventually ended up realizing that the poor want the same things as the rich. They want a decent roof over their heads and a job. And that in order to place Tassi into a job in a community like Cité Soleil, where he's from in Haiti, that we were going to need to create those jobs because they just don't exist. So that's where Thread was born.
Yeah, I think I'm just to take even like a further step back before I hear more about Thread. How did you end up in Haiti after the earthquake?
Oh, that's a great question. I was playing dodgeball with some friends on that night in 2010, and we were terrible. the team that I played on was really bad. We had won our only game that we were going to win that season, and we'd all gone out for beers afterwards. And I was sitting in a bar with my friends, and Anderson Cooper comes on the TV and breaks in and says that there's been this earthquake in Haiti. And I think I did what almost everybody did, which is like looked at TV, like when we're assaulted with bad news, which seems to happen all too often these days. And I just thought, like, man, what a shame, and I left it at that, really, like, what a shame. And kind of couldn't get out of my head. And I went home that night and went to bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was kind of like, what a shame is like the best you can do. Like, come on, man. Like, so the next morning I woke up and I was like, I got to go to Haiti. And I did exactly what I try to convince other people not to do. Now I got on a plane, and not knowing anything about working with the poor, I went and tried to figure out how to work with the poor.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy to think about, because I guess it's hard to figure out where to start exactly with your backstory, because in looking at other interviews that you've done, one thing that I have found so fascinating is that you seem to be the type of person to actually get on that plane, so to speak. Like, literally, of course, because you did it and you continue to do it, but just more broadly, like, I saw that you were a dolphin trainer, working with kids with special needs, volunteering with different organizations. To take a step back even further, which might be maybe 20 years ago or so, or 15 years ago or so.
I'm not that old, Matt. Come on.
I taking a little bit of a step back. I want to give you credit, because I know that I'm asking you about things that you've been doing team tasks.
Sure, yeah.
Like, where did that inclination even come from to start volunteering in the first place?
Oh, that's a good
20 years ago, we'll say.
Yeah, it's funny. I since I was a little kid, I've always gotten a lot of pleasure out of helping folks. Like, it just, and I think, like, I'm not unique. Like, everybody gets like, there's a shot of adrenaline. Like, there's a warm fuzzy. We all know it. Like, it feels good to help other people, and so I'm not special in that regard. I think what happened for me is, as I started going, getting older and older, and the real, quote unquote, real world started looming over top of me. I raged against the idea that I was going to sit at a desk my whole life. Like, I used to tell my dad, I'm never going to start a business. Like, I never want to be like somebody that just sits behind a desk. Yeah. And like, boy, was that wrong. But I had this inclination to be up and about and with people. Like, I've always really gotten a lot of energy from people, and I'm an extrovert, and I think out loud. So, I really, really enjoy being in a group and connecting folks. And, nothing makes me happier than, friends that don't know each other, coming together and me getting the chance to introduce them. Like, that type of personality, I think, lends itself well to working with folks. And then, my folks were always really clear that, like, if you have the ability to help, you have the responsibility to help. Like, and the more that you see, the more the toothpaste comes out of the tube, so to speak, right? And you can't put it back in. So it almost became more like duty. Like, you just feel like, okay, like, now I've seen more, I've seen this, and now I can't walk away from it. So all of that was swirling around, and I was trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do with my life. And then when the earthquake happened, it all kind of came to a head. I wasn't very happy with where my life was going before the earthquake. I felt like I was kind of getting into the rut where I was just at a regular 9-to-5 job. And then the earthquake happened, and it was as close to a lightning strike as you could get.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting, because for me, I talk with a lot of people who make change or make our world a better place in one way or the other. And one thing that I haven't really thought to say on an interview like this that I'm going to say now is like, you seem like a really good person when it comes to doing all this work and getting involved, because it's not the easiest thing. I think the easiest thing is to sit on the couch and not do anything. But I mean, I know that I'm sure that by now you have a reputation for doing the right thing when it comes to this kind of work. What advice do you have for people who don't have that inclination?
Well, I mean, first I would say I'm not any better than anybody else out there. Like, I'm not any better of a person than anybody else. I'm just 6'7" and I have a big loud voice. So when I walk into a room, people naturally look at me and they expect me to say something. And when I talk, I speak loudly. So, I've really been a leader by default. Like, it hasn't been anything special that I've done. But, in terms of like the inclination to get off the couch, you're right. Like, the work is draining. It's emotionally difficult. I think the more that you involve yourself in it, the more emotionally difficult that it becomes. I think that, I think many times spurs people to keep it at arm's length, particularly when you work with the poor and folks who haven't been born into the same lottery that I've had the chance to be born into. I think that, that many times, and I felt it myself, that over time it's easy to become cynical. It's easy to start to distance yourself from the people that you're helping, because it's just really effing hard to stay in it every day. But I think that the thing that I always come back to is I have a limited number of moments in this life. And now my list of things to do is much longer than the moments I've estimated I have left. And I think that, I think that's what it means to find a life's work. And I encourage people when I especially when I talk to kids and to students, I encourage people to, like D.H. Lawrence would say, like, get out of the glass bottles of our own ego. Right? Like, I think like it's very easy to stay at home and be insulated and read our news and feel like, by, giving $1 here or there, we can keep our guilt at bay long enough to like live a life that feels fulfilled. And I just don't feel like that's the right way to go. I feel like we have an ability as a community to help one another. I believe that that gives us a responsibility to it. And I believe that connection is actually what makes us who we are as a human race. Not to get too deep, but like, I really feel like everybody's connected, that our futures are tied up in one another's. And, that's true whether you live in Port-au-Prince or Pittsburgh or Washington, D.C. And I also feel like the problems that we solve in Haiti, or frankly, the problems that the people we serve solve, that we facilitate, I feel like they have application to the problems we face right here in the States. So I just feel like this is the path that's been laid out for me now, and now all I have to do is walk it. So yeah. I hope that's an answer. I mean, I know that was kind of a wandering answer, but at least it's an answer.
No, that's the kind of answer that I think is so beautiful, because when you're just kind of, when you're not even really thinking about it and you're just kind of talking about what you know and what you feel, like the fact that we are all connected, like that is something that I think is so important for people to realize when it comes to making an impact or doing something that's making change. Like, we're not all that different.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially today, like we have this perspective, particularly in America in 2017, that like there are people that live in the cities and people that live in the country. There are the flyover states, and there are the folks that are like woke, essentially, right? And like we have, even those who like profess to be empathetic and community driven, we have this tendency to look at folks who disagree with us with some sort of disdain. And like there's this there's an edge that's been introduced into our national discussion. And I feel like what you said is exactly right on, that like we are all connected. Like whether we like it or not, the progress comes not from the group that agrees with us moving forward, but all of us moving forward. And I just believe that that extends to the poorest of us. In fact, I really believe that when the poorest of us do well, the rest of us do great. And and I think that, you know, by helping the bottom billion pull themselves up out of poverty, it ensures a much better future, you know, for not, you know, just our children, but our grandchildren.
To ask a question that might be like a little bit too deep, where do you think that, like, that perspective comes from? I'm assuming it comes from your experience, but have you thought about like how you came to that conclusion? Because I mean, I would say, you know, it is a pretty unique one in a lot of ways, especially if you look at our national discourse in the United States.
Yeah. You know, I don't know that it's a unique one. I think that it's one that's being drowned out by like a more us versus them discussion. You know, I think that what we're seeing in American politics right now, I think it's a message that's trying to unite people who feel left behind, and blame, kind of use blame as an outlet to bring those people together, and it's working. Excuse me. I just finished Hillary Clinton's book after the election, and there's a really interesting section that you should definitely read about West Virginia and what's happening in West Virginia, and the messaging that you know, that our president has used in order to unite people who haven't had the chance to fend for themselves. And the only thing I can think of as I was reading the stories about the people that are from these old coal mining towns that don't have jobs is they remind me a lot of the folks that we serve in Haiti. You know, yeah, their skin's a different color. They solve like different problems. Like they're facing an opioid crisis that the folks we serve in Haiti aren't facing, but like they still all want the same things. And like the message that we're giving to those people is somebody else is to blame for your problems. And that person looks different from you and like is like coming for you. And I just feel like that attitude doesn't do anything for us, doesn't do anything to move our community forward. So I feel really, really strongly that it's incumbent on us to eliminate that type of thinking. And I don't know where that comes from. I just feel like, I don't know, there's plenty of people I've read and met and like looked up to that have maybe put those ideas in me. But yeah, I like we're at a critical time as a community.
Yeah.
I'm giving a lot of deep, wandering answers today. I'm sorry.
No, I actually appreciate these because I think, like, I mean, this is how a conversation is. I don't think this would be a fun interview. And now I'm talking about the interview, so it's like a meta.
Yeah, right. We're definitely in meta for sure.
We're in meta mode. But I mean, it's not fun when you're talking about all the things that I mean, I'm sure that you've spoken about a lot, and people will have a lot to gain. Like I know I have a lot to gain from just what you've said because it's powerful, and it's powerful even if you've you know, maybe read some of it somewhere else or heard some of it somewhere else that like someone like you who's doing powerful work is saying it. I do want, you know, before, as we kind of move toward the end of the interview, I do want to ask, like, what's that impact been like so far in Haiti?
Excruciating.
Yeah.
What is it? The arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice.
Right.
But it bends ever so slowly, and it requires immense amount of force to push. The progress is definite, but slow. And I don't think that's special. Like any progress of any movement in our history, anywhere, like requires first that people ignore you, and then they laugh at you, and then they get angry with you, and then you win. Yeah. And I think we're still in the people ignore us phase of the movement that we're pushing on. I believe that poverty is one of, if not the largest problem facing our species in the coming years. I believe that it's a direct cause of climate change and some of the other problems that we face. It's a direct cause of our national politics. And I think that it has ramifications that could change the way humans interact with one another forever. So I think it's ultimately a priority that we're not putting enough attention on. I don't believe that the issue has to do with like polar bears. I believe that the issue has to do with people and the deep divisions that we're creating by allowing inequality to fester. There's never been a time in our history, at least in our recent history, where the haves have controlled as much and the have-nots have had as little influence on our international discussion. And I feel like poverty is at the root cause of that, and I think it's something that we're not paying enough attention to.
Yeah, there's a lot to digest here. I mean, I think it's funny because I do these short 25 to 30-minute interviews usually, and like they end up being really great conversations, but we're dealing with something that's so big that, I mean, I think the least that could come out of a conversation like this is just learning about like your perspective and different perspectives. I think something else I just want to mention to touch on is I love what you were saying before when you were talking about West Virginia and speaking about how like we need to realize that, one, we're not that different, that we have the opportunity to have these productive dialogues. Like there's a lot of suffering and struggle and similarity in that suffering and struggle. I think it's powerful, and I can't wait to read your book one day when you sum it all up. But
no plans yet, but
that does lead me to like my final question, maybe one of my favorite questions. But if your life were a book or a documentary, what would that title be and why?
Oh man. I've always, the first thing that came to mind is I love the phrase, and nevertheless she persisted. I think that like that is something that I just, it wraps up so much of what I believe into just a couple of words. I'm not a she. I go with a he pronoun. But I would love to be known for, and nevertheless he persisted. I think that the only thing standing between us and progress is work. And there's so much noise. There's so many people who stand on their big important jobs and impact, and there's a lot of bullshit out there about like, look how important I am versus look how important I am versus look how important I am. And there's not a ton of people that are out there actually doing work, actually with their like shoulder to the wheel, nose to the grindstone, like pick a metaphor. But, I feel like being known to be one of the ones pushing that arc of the universe towards justice is like the only, like, what else is there? Like if you're going to get known for something, I just want to be known as somebody who got something done.
Yeah. I think that's powerful. And that's also another piece that we didn't really touch on, but something I think that's a good lesson, which is just resilience, like realizing that life will not be easy, and the world won't always treat us the best that it can, but we could persist and push through it in order to keep going. Because I mean, it sounds like from what you've explained and just from what you said, like having that resolve will make it a lot easier the next time that a similar challenge comes up. Like that's one thing that I find that I learned that I'm learning along the way, that like with every challenge that I have, that just raises my tolerance level for dealing with a lot of
Well, it's not going to be sexy. Like everybody has this feeling like that, like it's all TED Talks and like big conferences, and like the vast majority of work gets done in the dark, and way slower than you expect, and is like ultimately about getting punched in the face 50 times and getting up 51. And I think that anybody who's out there thinking about choosing a life that that involves itself with work like this, I think, or really choosing any life, like, and to be successful anywhere, I feel like it's just about, it's mainly about grit. I don't think you need to be all that smart. I think you have to have your heart in the right place, but ultimately I think you need to be willing to like go through anything to be able to continue to put your one foot in front of the other. Yeah.
I guess I'll say, like, with that said, I do have like one final question.
Sure.
Because, like, I know in your experience with Thread and Team Tossie, but then also before that, like with Survivor and everything else that you've done in your experience, like you've heard from a lot of people who've given you feedback on how you've impacted their lives. Like what's, or like, I guess to reframe that, because I don't want to put you in a position where you have to talk about, how great others might say that you are. But, like, what are some of the stories that you've heard that have made it worth it for you?
Oh, wow. I've actually never been asked that question before.
Oh, wow.
It's weird. Like it's a lot easier to think of the things that you haven't done right, to be honest with you. Like I think one of my weaknesses is that I dwell on the things that aren't going well. And I have a hard time looking back and seeing progress and like taking a moment and letting that wash over you. But there are moments, there's moments that that are really meaningful, that keep you going on really hard days. And in Haiti, there's plenty of them. And I would say that there was a one of the first families that we helped was of the Adme family. I talk about Mark Noel Adme in a TED Talk that I gave a while ago, so I won't tell that story here. But before we helped put Mark Noel back to work, that he, this guy Mark Noel lives in a really poor neighborhood in Port-au-Prince called Menelas, and it's where Team Tossie does most of its work now. And he's got a couple of kids, and he had heard about the work we were doing with Tossie. And he brought his daughter Ruth one day to a church that I was hanging out at with some of the folks that I work with down there. And he had said that she had some problems. He didn't speak a lot of English at the time, but over the course of a long conversation, I realized that Ruth was born without the ability to pee. Like she had a situation that where something was wrong inside, and she just couldn't pee. So she was reprocessing all of her own urine, and it was killing her slowly. And she was maybe 18 months old at the time. And so thinking that this was going to be a really expensive, drawn out process like it was with Tossie, we got to work back up in the States trying to find a surgeon who might be able to do a surgery on her, and how to get her into the States legally or illegally, to make sure that she gets into a doctor's office. And while we're doing that, I had learned about a women's clinic in a community in Haiti called Las Cajobas, which is near the Dominican border. It's run by an organization called Partners in Health, which is founded by a hero of mine, Paul Farmer. And I decided that the next time I was in Haiti, we were going to go up to this clinic and see if the doctor there could see her. So I took Mark Noel and his wife, Carmita, and Ruth up with me in a truck up into the Central Plateau of Haiti. And it's long 2 or 3 hour drive. And we got into this little clinic. It wasn't much. I didn't have really high expectations. And the doctor comes out and he takes Ruth into the back. And over the course of 10 minutes, after examining her, he says, "I want to try a procedure right here in this office. Would that be okay?" And obviously Carmita and Mark Noel said yes. So he, over a really quick, pretty painless procedure, Ruth got fixed up. And on the way home, she peed for the very first time. And I know that sounds like, it's pretty pedantic, but it was an enormous, enormous thing. And I realized that for the cost of medicine, $5 that helped heal the wound that she'd gotten during the procedure, that this little girl's life, who we thought was going to cost $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 to fix, ended up being fixed with a procedure in a medical clinic in the foothills of Haiti with a $5 medicine. And the second thought that immediately dawned on me was that $5 was still out of reach for Mark Noel and his family. Whether it was $400,000 or $5, it wouldn't have mattered. And it was in that moment that I realized that the work was important, that we can have an immense impact by simply connecting people to resources that already exist. And if we get good at it, that we could do that for a lot of folks. So that was a moment for me that crystallized what I believe, which is the problems that we face are certainly surmountable. It just requires us to sometimes get in the truck.
Yeah. It's funny because as you were saying that, I was thinking, well, before we started talking, I was thinking about, okay, like I'm gonna go buy. I saw a really cool shirt on the Thread website. Started from a bottle, now we're here. And so I thought to myself, oh, I should get the shirt. And like what you're saying is really important because it reminds me, like, I could go to Haiti with the work that you're doing.
Yeah, you should come.
I know, that's what I'm saying. We'll figure it out. I have to plan this out, but I would love to because, I think even for me as someone who talks with a lot of people who are doing great work, like it's really easy to forget that sure, time is limited and we all have all these other priorities and things going on, but you could still get on a flight and get in a truck and do the work that you have to do.
Yeah, you don't have to get on a flight either. Like you're 5 miles from some of the poorest folks in America. Like, exactly. And I think that sometimes we think it requires this immense amount of that there's millions of dollars that we have to throw at a problem. And sometimes it's as easy as a $5 medicine.
Yeah.
And it just requires somebody that has been down the path before and knows that there's a light at the end of it. So yeah, but definitely come to Haiti, man.
I'm coming. It's happening. I said it on during the interview.
You've interviewed Viv now, and you've interviewed me, so
yeah,
you gotta come.
Don't worry. Next time you're both there, I'll be there.
That's the deal. All right, cool. I'm gonna hold you to it.
Okay, great, cool. We'll figure it out offline. But speaking of online and offline, where can people learn more about Thread and the work that you're doing?
Sure. Thread is threadinternational.com, and you can find us on all the social medias. And Team Tassy is teamtassy.org, TASSY.
Awesome. And for those who want to learn more about 180 Degrees of Impact, it's www.lets.care, @letsyoucare on Twitter, facebook.com/letsyoucare. Just very consistent across the board. But thanks again, Ian, for this chat. It's been really awesome, and I've actually learned a lot through the process. And I feel like we could go on just forever. So thanks again. And for anyone who's watching, until next time, keep impacting.